Hello and welcome to our Intro to Maya workshop. This is our fall week 3 2025 workshop, which is going to be our intro to modeling in Maya. And then we're going to talk about why we're using Maya, is Maya, why Maya over Blender, and then also just kind of go over in an activity about the kind of general interface of Maya, as well as how to create some stylized foliage. So let's begin. So, if you don't have Maya up right now, try to do it. If you're a student, you can get the student license if you just search up Adobe Autodesk Maya student license. A link should pop up where you can kind of enter your credentials and get that student license, which is completely free. So please do that. Make sure you have it up before. But as this is a video, you can kind of just pause and pull it up whenever too. So what is Maya? Maya is the industry standard software for both modeling and animation. It's been around since the 1990s, and that means it's not really going to go anywhere, as most of the large AAA studios have their pipelines already built entirely around Maya. It's also just a really strong and technical, precise modeling tool, and has really easy integration into Unreal and Unity. So a little bit about Maya. It's what a lot of companies use Maya. A lot of films, movies, TV shows, just whatever, even use Maya. Not just games. Like, this isn't limited to just games, because they use it for CGI and stuff like that. So a lot of these companies already have it built in. As I said, it's from the 1990s. So as kind of tech and animation was starting to pop up and become more prevalent in kind of these movies, these animated films and whatever, not even animated too, but as it was becoming more popular, Maya was just solidifying itself even more into all of these companies' pipelines. So yeah, that's a little bit about Maya. So here's some examples of what has been made with Maya. We have Star Wars The Mandalorian, a TV show, Arcane, and that's also can be tied to League of Legends, has also been made using Maya. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, all those films. K-Pop Demon Hunters, which is a recent popular film. But even films like Lord of the Rings or the Avengers series, like both those series, some of the CGI done in that was made using Maya. And we have some games: God of War Ragnarok, Valorant, Overwatch, and The Last of Us. And these are just a few. A lot of media has been made with Maya, but I just thought it'd maybe be a little bit helpful to see some examples, some things that you might know. So there you go. Now let's go on to why we're not going to be using Blender. So I have a little Venn diagram here of just kind of the differences that each software offers. Maya has a big focus on animation and modeling, specifically animation. It is like the animation tool. So if you're really interested in 3D animation, please, and you are a student, please try Maya, or try to learn it. I don't know a lot about 3D animation personally, but I know Maya has really good rigging tools and a really good animation tool. So if you're really interested in that, please check out Maya and some tutorials on it. Maya is paid. It's free for students, but if you're not a student, it is kind of expensive. But it's used in AAA studios. Pipelines are built around Maya because of its great implementation, and has slower updates for sure, compared to Blender, where Blender is more of a generalist platform. You can do a lot in Blender, and there's a lot of great resources in Blender and tools and stuff, but it is still more of a generalist. So if you want to go into this 3D in general, you can try Blender. I actually recommend trying out both softwares. But if you're going into kind of a more generalist role, I don't know. I would still prioritize Maya, especially if you can get it for free if you're going to start trying out anything. Because if you start out with the industry standard platform and just start learning it, then you're going to have an easier time if you want to go into it as a job. Otherwise, if you're just doing something for fun, maybe Blender could work. You can also do both. I would recommend doing both, getting experience in both, just so that when you're applying to places, you can say that you can work in both or show that you can work in both. But Blender also has more free resources. Like I said, it's going to be more common in indie games because it's free. It's not commonly found in larger pipelines, as I said, because Maya's just been around forever. They're built around it. And Blender is rapidly growing. They are pushing out updates pretty consistently. But yeah, both tools have modeling, UV editing, animation, and skills are transferable. Like I said, I would recommend getting some skill in both. I actually don't think I know enough Blender, as I kind of began and started with Maya. So that's something that I need to do personally. But another thing about the difference of like, you're like, okay, well, that's fine. That's why we're not using like Blender. But like, honestly, the main reason why studios choose to use Maya over Blender is because of cost. It would cost studios so much money to swap softwares, because it's not just an easy thing like Google Docs. I saw this great example. It's not just an easy thing like Google Docs to Word. Like, you can't just swap like that as you could modeling softwares like these, because of, I keep mentioning pipelines, but like, what does that mean? Basically, studios will typically you'll start a model in ZBrush or Maya, like edit the model there, edit the UVs, then you go to a texturing software like Substance Painter, texture it, and then you take both of those, put them in Engine. And that's kind of like an example of a kind of a standard pipeline. And so a lot of these companies have that initial start software as like Maya, as that's where they will model. That's where they will, if they start in ZBrush, they'll bring it into Maya to edit the topology. They'll edit the UVs in Maya. Like, that's where most of the stuff is happening. And in addition to that, they also have tools that you can build in Maya using a Maya-specific programming language called Mel. So these big studios and softwares have spent a lot of money, not only like paying for Maya and, you know, paying the employees that will know Maya, but they've also spent a lot of money on kind of to bring in these tech artists, or to have tech artists that build tools for them using Mel. And to swap platforms would mean to like lose out on that, you know? So it's really just not worth it for studios to switch, which, you know, it's been around forever. So on top of being around forever and so much stuff being built in it already, you're just not really going to see a switch, no matter how. I mean, something crazy would need to happen to have it like a direct swap. But you're not going to see a quick change at all if it does happen. It's just more stuff will be made with Blender for sure, but kind of the larger studios that have already solidified themselves are more than likely not to swap. Yeah. So we're gonna get into the activity now. So if you have Maya up, you can kind of bring that up. We are going to go through how to navigate the general interface, move around the scene with the camera, and just kind of how to spawn in basic objects, so that on your own time, if you want to learn that, you can. I can show you some shortcuts too, but afterwards, after the kind of that general overview, which will be brief, we're going to go into how to make some stylized foliage using a 2D image. Okay, so let's get into that. So if you have Maya open, this is 2024, but it should look pretty similar to 2025. But basically, you should each all have like a new button, and if you just click new, that's going to open up a new project. Now the first thing is mine's gonna look a little bit different, and that's okay. If you just go to the top right on workspace, you can click modeling standard, and then that should make it so that each of ours looks the same. So now your scene should be somewhat like this. Another thing that I recommend is choosing the poly modeling tab up here. So you can see there's all these tabs with all these shortcuts for the tools. Just click poly modeling. That's what we'll be using. But I'll also show you where to locate stuff. So one thing, if you're familiar with Blender, you might notice where's like my starting cube. That doesn't, if you start a new scene in Maya, you don't get a starting cube. So I'll just show you how to spawn one in. So you can either go mesh or create, sorry. You can go create. No, wait, where is it? Yeah, create polygon primitives cube. So then you have a bunch of options here too. Soccer ball. I've never actually seen soccer ball. I guess you can form a soccer ball. But what I like to do is just go to this tab. They're all right here as well, except for the soccer ball. And you can just click and that'll spawn a cube. Okay. Now for some of the basic controls, the shortcuts are as follows for like selecting, moving, and rotating. Selecting is Q, moving is W, rotating is E, and scaling is R. So Q, W, E, R, kind of that top row, those top 4 keys, right? And this is similar to most game engines, which is why I typically say, like, if you're more familiar with having worked in like a game engine like Unity or Unreal, you might have an easier time initially getting into Maya, because the keybinds for all these tools are Q, W, E, and R, which is the same keybinds as they are in the game engines. And for me, when I was first starting Blender, I'm pretty sure Blender's controls are a little wacky, which is fine, but to me, as someone coming out of an engine, it was kind of odd. But yeah, so Q, W, E, and R is select, move, rotate, and scale. Now to move the actual camera, if you just hold Alt and hold down left click, you can pan around the scene, mouse wheel in and out to zoom in and out, and then Alt and middle click will allow you to pan. And then if you ever want to reset your scene or reset to the object, just press F, and then it will reset your focus centered around the object. So you see if I pan off, my center won't be around the object anymore. If I click F and then I start rotating, it will be. So let's scale this up a little bit. And then I'm going to show you, again, briefly, some other stuff. So on top of camera controls and just some of the shortcuts that you have, you also have up here in your kind of viewport, you have this little row. I don't know if you can see it, but currently we have this kind of shaded box selected. If we were to click the one to the left, that would show us the wireframe, which allows you to kind of see through an object, which is very helpful if you're like character modeling or something and you have a turnaround and you're just trying to match the shape to the turnaround. You can kind of use this as a way to kind of block out the because otherwise you'd have to see like this gray, so you could just use this to kind of get rid of that and just see the image more cleanly that you import. But then you also have the default material, which if we had a material on this, let's say here, let's add a material really quick. Don't worry about this yet. If I had this be like a red, and I had to use default material, it would just reset it to the basic gray. Okay. And that's fine. I'm gonna use that for now until we actually get into that. But, and then you have this option, which is kind of like basically just giving the shapes a little nice outline to work with. I kind of like using this just because, like, this kind of blends with your eyes sometimes, so just having that kind of makes it more defined, where you can see the edges a little bit easier. And then this is going to show like a texture if you have it textured onto it. So we will get into that later, but that is what those buttons do. We also have just some general windows up here we can briefly go over. So we have mesh, you have booleans, which you won't really be using, but you can union two objects together. You can make a difference between two objects, which allows you to kind of make, like, if you had a cube and you wanted to basically make a cutout of a cube in another cube, you could make a difference. It's hard to explain, but you'll maybe have some experience with it later. Then you have a bunch of these tools that you may or may not use. Some of them are helpful. Remesh, reduce, that's helpful for kind of making the geometry or the topology simpler. And then a mirror tool is very useful. Transfer attributes is something that we'll cover later. Edit mesh, this is where you have some more tools specifically to the mesh that you're editing. We'll use some of these later too. And then you have some mesh tools, which basically you can insert a new edge loop, make a hole. Multi-cut is something that we'll use, and target weld is something that we'll also use. But I recommend just kind of generally going over these windows if you want. Maya can look very complicated, but it's really not too bad once you just start learning. So I really recommend just checking out some beginner tutorials. They don't even have to be like a tutorial about like, okay, I want a whole tutorial telling me about the general interface. Like, you can do that if you want, but you could also just go into like how to model blank tutorial and just get experience with the methods that people are using, and then that maybe will help you navigate a little bit easier too. But so that's that. There are some other shortcuts that I just want to briefly go over. So if you right click, this will kind of bring up a window, and this is for those that are kind of familiar with Blender. You have like your object mode and then your edit mode, which goes down into like the faces, edges, and vertices or vertices. So let's just right click, and you're holding right click, and then if you just hover over an option and let go, you'll go into that mode. So we're gonna go into face mode. That allows us to select a singular face. Edge mode allows us to select a singular edge. Vertex mode allows us to select these vertices. Let's go to face mode and just select this top one. So one thing I want to go over is how to extrude and how to bevel, because those are tools that a lot of people will use. Sorry, my dog is like eating my chair. That's fine. I'm just gonna kind of hold shift, and you can see if I hold shift while having the move tool, again that's W, if I hold shift while having the move tool selected and I hover over this top Y vector, you can see that the word extrude pops up. Sorry if you hear my dog. But if I hold shift, see extrude, then I click on this arrow and just drag it up, you can see it, I'm bringing up this face. And this is really helpful. I really recommend using the extrude tool. It's something that you'll run into a lot if you are able to, or if you are interested in modeling. It's not something I'm going to personally cover here too much. I just wanted to show that kind of the way that you can do it. And then the next thing that I'm not going to cover, but I will show, is how to bevel. And that's simply by, if I just hold this face and click Control B, then I bevel. And you'll see that there's a little window that pops up. I'll enlarge it a little bit. And then this fraction, if you hover over the text here, you can actually kind of scale it with your mouse. But this fraction is basically just, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's saying essentially how much do we want to kind of cut it off by. Segments just will make kind of that cut more round. Be careful about how many segments you're using, because if you use a lot and bevel a lot, it can affect performance pretty heavily. These other ones you don't really have to worry about. I don't really know what these would do. The main two that you're going to be using are just segments and fraction. Okay, so, well, that's bevel and extrude. And that's just a little brief overview of the user interface, or just basically how to get around Maya. So now I'm just going to click delete while having that selected to delete that, and then we're going to get started with the actual tutorial on how to create stylized foliage. So you can see here, I'll provide a link to these in the description, but I have two image files. One is kind of the base color. This is the base color for our flowers that we'll be creating, and then one of these is the alpha, or the opacity kind of map. So that's what these are two things that you should have, and I'm gonna show you how to insert them into Maya. Okay, so I'm gonna very quickly click off the use default material, and then kind of just click F to reset my scene. So to start, we're gonna spawn a plane. I'm just gonna scale it up a little bit and move it up. I'm gonna hold right click, go down to add assign. You can do assign new material. I like doing assign favorite material and Lambert, just because that it basically does the same thing, except I'm just assigning it to be Lambert, or the type to be Lambert on creation. I'm just gonna title this flowers, and this will be our flowers texture. Now that we have our material here, we're going to go to this color tab, click on the little black and white grid. That's going to open up a menu, and we're just going to click File. So now this is going to assign our color to be basically coming from a texture map. And so on the image name thing here, we're just going to click the folder again, and then you're going to navigate to wherever you have downloaded those files. Okay. So for me, it's going to be in a folder called Flowers. Here. So we're going to choose the one that's just as flowers, our base color. And then you might be like, okay, well, it's assigned and the color's assigned, but I can't see the color on the plane. Well, do you remember the texture view thing that I covered earlier? So it's just basically this button, textured. We just select that and then it pops up. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys essentially how that works. But now we have it here. But now we need to get rid of kind of the white space. So we're going to go back over here with the attribute editor. Make sure you have the attribute editor open. And you can go into the flowers. Hold up, my dog is tearing apart my chair. And then instead, this time we're going to go into transparency. Same thing, we're going to clicking File, clicking the folder, and you're just navigating to the other... oh my god. You're navigating to the other folder, right? My dog's biting me. Okay, so we're gonna just select the _A for alpha, and then there we go. Now we have it kind of being transparent. So now that we have this, we have to actually cut out the flowers to begin making a shape with them. So to do that, in the poly modeling tab, we have the multi-cut tool here, but you could also find it in Mesh Tools Multi-Cut. We're just gonna select that, and then if you start to hover over, you'll start to select edges. Okay, hold on one sec, I'm gonna move my dog. Okay. Hopefully, I got a puppy and she's eating everything. But we're just gonna click to spawn kind of where we are making our initial slice, and then click to kind of continue that. And we're just basically trying to cut out. You can see I kind of just cut out and made this. You are going outside, puppy. Okay. Okay, so, and then we're just gonna do that again for everything else. So just kind of cutting it out. This larger one, just cutting this. Oh, sorry. And then to confirm your cut, you just right click. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. But just right click and then you confirm your cut. So you can continue doing this for everything. But you can kind of choose which ones you want to do. You don't have to cut out everything if you don't want to, but this is fine. So we're just going to click W again, and then this is basically going to get our move tool. You can also do Q, but for selecting, I just like doing move. I don't know, something that I like doing. You don't have to do it. But now that we have these cut out, we're just going to select by doing shift click and selecting all the, now these are new faces, all these faces where we don't have something cut out, and just click delete. So now we are left with just these. Now we need to detach and separate these from each other, because if we go into object mode, they're still acting as one, object. So let's just click one face, go to edit mesh, detach, and then we can just move this away. And we're just doing that edit mesh detach for every single one. Okay. Detach. And now that they're all detached, if we click, there's still one object. But now we can do mesh. No, edit. No, it is mesh. Mesh, and then separate. And what that will do is now, if you select them, you can see that we can select them all individually. But you'll notice that their pivot is still to the pivot that they had when they were one object. So all we're going to do is go to these top three. These are freeze transformations, delete history, and center pivot. We'll get to delete history in a bit. But just click all three of them. I like going right to left, and that will reset our pivot. And also just kind of confirm our changes. So now we have these flowers, or these cutout images at least. Not quite flowers yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this one. Actually, first, we're going to clean up a little bit, or check to see if we can clean this up a little bit. So we're going to use our target weld tool now, which you can find here, or again in edit or mesh tools, target weld. And what we're doing is basically we're just going to click and see if there's any extra vertices that we don't need and that we can clean up. So right here you can see there's this one just kind of hanging out. If we just click it and kind of drag it to the corner, we get rid of that. So here again, let's do this, that, and just kind of doing that all around. But you can see here I tried to do it and it's kind of starting to cut off this, so that's fine, you can just leave it. But yeah, so that just cleans it up a little bit. But we're done with that. And what I'm gonna do is just show you how to make, I'm gonna move this all to the side and then show you how to make a flower. So I'm just gonna hit Control D to duplicate and move this a little bit over here. And then if you actually hold X while moving, you can snap it to the grid. So we're just gonna snap it to the center here, okay? And then what we're gonna do now is I'm going to try to cut it to be even. You can see this right side is a little bit closer than our left. And if you hold Control while using the cut tool, it actually gives you a straight line. So we can do that. And then just delete the face. Okay. And now we have our image of our kind of petals, our flower bud. We want to make it have a vertex in the middle so that we can kind of give it some depth to kind of show how it goes inwards. So what we're going to do is, again, go to our knife tool. We're just going to click one corner and then click the other across. We're just going to form two diagonals, and that will now form a vertex for us in the center. And having this vertex selected, we can just move it down, and you can kind of see how it's starting to go down and give us some depth. So just do that, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back into object mode, because now we want to spawn, or now we want to create our stem. So we're gonna spawn a cube. We're gonna scale it just so that it kind of fits where it needs to go, essentially. So like that, essentially. And then we're going to go into face mode, select both of the top and bottom face, and just delete them because we don't need them. And then now that we do that, we're going to go into edge mode, select our corner edges, go to mesh display, and soften edge. And this will kind of give us, this will soften the edges, which kind of gives us an interesting look that we'll edit. But having our cube selected, we're going to go into, we're going to right click and assign existing material flowers. So what this is doing is essentially just assigning the same material that's attached to the flower to our stem. And now we need to edit the UVs to basically assign our stem the correct color. So to open the UV editor, you can go UV editor. This will open this tab where you can see our image. And if you have your cube selected and in face mode, you can kind of see the edges. To make it a little easier, you can just click on this, which shows the image or not. But you can see our UVs there. And we're gonna open the UV toolkit as well. So if you just go to in the UV editor, there's tools and then UV toolkit, and this will open kind of a window where you can use some buttons to edit the UVs, essentially. So having all the faces selected, we're gonna click automatic. I recommend just using automatic if you just want a clean kind of, well, not necessarily clean, but fast UV map that does a pretty good job at what you likely are expecting or wanting. If you're interested in like kind of getting more of a cleaner UV map, you probably have to do it manually or some sort, which is fine. But I'd recommend looking up a video on that. I typically just use the automatic tool because I'm not too worried about that, because it does pretty much what I want most of the time. But now that we have all this selected, we're just gonna scale this down. We can re-enable our image. And what we're doing is just scaling these faces down and moving them to be kind of in our green blotch. And it doesn't really matter how big they are, as long as they're in there. And then that's pretty much all we need. So you can just click on the little two tabs, the UV editor and toolkit, to close them. And then now that you can see our bases, go to object mode, our base is kind of that green color that we just selected. Now all we're going to do is we're just going to select both of these by drag and selecting, or by just individually selecting. We're going to go, you can go here and combine, or you can go into mesh again and combine. So we're just going to combine them. We're going to freeze transformations, delete history, and reset the pivot again. But you can notice as I go under it, the flower becomes kind of like this black color, which isn't really what we want, and that is being affected by the normals. And normals are something that you will definitely encounter or have some sort of problem with, probably, with your models in the future if you do pursue 3D modeling. So it's just good to know how normals typically work. Basically, your normals will face a certain direction, and the direction that they're facing is basically telling the editor and the lighting systems how light should affect the object. So for us, the plane that we started is just facing pretty much straight up. So if you go like even a little bit under it, it's just going to become dark like instantly. So you can edit normals kind of manually or whatever, but for us, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to spawn another plane. You can scale it up if you want, just to make it a little easier, but you don't have to. But all you're going to do is select the plane, select the flower, go to edit mesh, there's a mesh, and then transfer attributes. And don't just click it, make sure that you see this little window on the right. You want to click that. This will open the actual window for the tool and give us the tool settings. We're going to make sure everything is pretty much off except for vertex normal, and you want that to be on. And if that's on, you just click transfer. You can see now that if I go under the flower, it's kind of, you see it deals with light a little bit better, you know. Okay. So that's pretty much that. So you might be like, okay, well now we can just delete the plane. We're done with it. But then if you look again, oh, it got reset. That's so weird. So it Control-Z, make it reset. Basically what's causing that is that you have this transfer attributes modifier on the flower that's getting the attributes, the normals, from the plane and applying it to the flower. And if you just delete the plane, then it no longer has that kind of reference. So to essentially save this and delete the plane, what we need to do is go up here again and click delete history. And this is basically, what this is doing is basically telling it, okay, delete the history of like us ever having referenced that. Like these should be the normals. Like this is supposed to be the normals that it's like, basically that it's ever been like. So if we click delete history and then delete the plane, you can see that they stay. That's a very cool trick. Yeah, so that's that. And then you can, I just like clicking them, but you can do that. But no, here we have our little flower. So that's very awesome and very cute. So you might be like, okay, well, how do we export? So to export, make sure you're saving. By the way, I haven't saved a single time. Make sure you're doing saving, Control-S or whatever. But we're gonna export this file, export selection. It's just gonna export what you have selected. And we're just looking for the file name, file type. Don't really worry about these options. So we're just calling this, and make sure you know where you're saving this to. So I'm just gonna name them flowers_video, just as a reference for me. You can name them whatever you want. And then for file type, just make sure you have FBX export. There's gonna be a lot of types. Don't worry about them, honestly. You won't really use any of them ever except for FBX export, so just make sure you select that. And then just click export selection, and that will save the object to wherever you have selected. And that's basically it, guys. That's a little overview of Maya and how to create some stylized foliage. I recommend, we have all these different flowers that you can do different stuff with. We have some leaves that you can apply to them as well. So I recommend checking that out. There is a little white thing up here on these flowers. You can kind of cut it if you guys want with a knife tool. But Besides that, we have our flower here. So you can import this into any game engine that you like. You can add a shader to it, whatever, you know. But that's going to be it. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below, or if you're in the Discord for the club, you can ping me there or ask questions. I am filming this right before the workshop, so if you go to the workshop, we'll cover this all again, and I'll also show you guys how to import it into Unity or Unreal. I'm not going to show that here. It's very simple though. You basically just drag and drop it into Engine and then edit the material a little bit. If you want to find somewhere or how to do that, there's probably plenty of videos that you can find. But yeah, that is that. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys will start to learn Maya. It's very fun. It's a very cool tool and very powerful. I'm gonna have to go deal with my dog, so I will see you guys later. Thank you guys again for watching, and bye bye.